Good morning, Year 10. I hope you had a lovely week. This is your solutions video for week 6, so please make sure you mark your answers as you go along, correcting any that weren't quite right. So we are starting with subtracting fractions. So to subtract or add fractions, we need to have the same denominator. So to get the same denominator, we need 2 times our two denominators together. So if we do 2 times 5, we get 10. So we can pop those on the bottom. Now, to get to 10 from 2, I times it by 5. So that's what I do for this side. And to get from 5 to 10, I times this side by 2. So I'm going to do that to the numerator as well. So 5 times 1 is 5. And then 2 times 1 is 2. And then I put my subtract sign in the middle. So I then do 5 minus 2 is 3, and then just add in my over 10, okay? So my answer would be 3/10. Now the next one is multiplying fractions, which is probably the easiest one to do, because all I've got to do is multiply the two numerators together and multiply the two denominators together. So I've got 1 times 1 equals 1, and 3 times 2 equals 6. So my final answer would be 1 over 6, okay? 1/6. So the next one is something that we haven't had in our previous ones. It is estimate, okay? So for this one, once again, I'm going to round them to one significant figure, okay? So if I take 310 to start with, I am going to round that to one significant figure, which would be 300. And then if I do the same for 24, I would have 20. Then, that's nice and easy, I can just do those 2 times together. So I can do 2 times 3 is 6, and then add in my 3 zeros. So my estimated answer would be 6,000. Okay, so the next one is also an estimation, but a little bit more complicated. So I'm going to do the same for this one. So if I round 31 to one significant figure, I would get 30. If I do the same for 65, I'd get 70. And then 9.7 rounded to one significant figure would be 10. So if I add those two numbers on the top, I'd get 100. And I want to divide that by 10. So therefore I would get 10, which would be my final estimated answer. Okay, so on to the next one. It says increase £640 by 35%. Now, increase means we're going up, so the number that we're expecting as our answer must be more than £640, and we've done these in class. So the first thing, we'll do it the calculator method. Obviously, you could do it using a calculator as well, which we'll go through in a second. So, if it was non-calculator, we'd want to find our 35%. Of £640, and then we would add it on, okay? So let's start by finding 10%. So 10% of £640, if we divide that by 10, we would get £64, okay? So we want 3 of those, don't we? Because we want, that would get our 30%. So we would then add those together, and we'd get 192. So we know that 30% equals 192. So to find 5%, we would just halve the thing that we found for 10%. So half of 64 would be 32, and then we can add that on. So we'd have 192, add our 32. So we'd have 2 plus 2 is 4, 9 plus 3 is 12, and then 2. So we'd have 224. That is our 35%, and then we can just add that to our £640, which I have conveniently written here. So 4 plus 0 would equal 4, 2 plus 4 would equal 6, and 6 plus 2 would equal 8. So there we are, is our final answer with a pound sign, obviously, would be £864. However, in class, we've also had a go at the calculator method, okay? So we could do this using a calculator by using our knowledge of converting things into decimals. So essentially, if I'm increasing by 35%, what I want to know is I want to know my 100%, which was 640, and then I want to add my 35%, okay? So really what I want to find is 135% of my £640, okay? Now to change the percentage into a decimal, I would divide by 100. So I'd do 135 divided by 100, so take it back 2, which equals 1.35. Then I could just times 640 by 1.35, and I would get exactly the same answer of 864, okay? So you can do it either way. So just, you can decide which way you want to do it. Obviously, if it's a non-calculator paper, you'd have to do it the first way. If it's calculator, more advisable to do it this way because it is quicker. Okay, so this is the same amount. I still want 35% for question 6. So we'll just do it the kind of calculator method this time. So I know that eventually, this time it is decrease though. Okay, so decrease means going down. So to find my decimal, originally I had 100%. Okay, but I want to take away 35%. So I would do 100 minus 35, which would equal 65. So basically, I want 65% of my original amount, which was £620. So now I need to find 65% as a decimal. So I'm going to do 65 divided by 100, which would equal, so I'm taking it back 2 because it's 100, so I'd have 0.65. So now I can just times 620 by 0.65, and that should give me the answer, which is 403. Okay, so £403 for this one. Perfect. Okay, so on to the next one then. So we're finding the nth term this time. So we're going to find, first of all, the difference between them, okay? So between 2 and 7, what have we done? Well, we've added 5. Between 7 and 12, we've added 5 again. And between, we've got a bit of a, oh no, what happened there? Okay, I don't know what happened there, but now we've got the answer, but no written method, but you had the method before, so it does exist. Okay, so back to the nth term, so I'll rewrite it. So we're finding the difference first, okay, so the difference between 2 and 7, 7 and 12, and 12 and 17. So each time I've added 5, haven't I? Okay, so now I can pop that as my first bit, and then I put n after it to represent the number in the sequence. So I've got 5n. Now, the next thing I need to do is figure out how I get from 5 to the first number in the sequence. So how do we get from 5 to 2? What do we have to do? Well, we have to minus 3. Okay, so that's my answer, but we can just check it, let's say by the third number in the sequence. So if I wanted the third number in this sequence, I would replace n with 3, okay? So I would do 5 times 3 is 15, minus 3 equals 12, okay? So now I know that I've got the correct answer. On to the next one then. So what is the difference between 11 and 23? So the difference between 11 and 23 would be 12, add 12. And then the difference between 23 and 35, again, we've added 12. And between 35 and 47, we've added 12 again. So now we know that there's a common sequence. We can put 12 at the beginning and then our n to represent the number of the sequence. Now we've got to figure out how do we get from this 12 to the first number in our sequence, which is 11. Well, that's nice and simple. We just minus 1. So why don't we check it with the fourth number in the sequence? So if I replace n with 4, I would do 4 times 12 is 48, minus 1 equals 47. So now I know that that is correct, okay? So we've just about run out of time on this part 1 of the video. So join us for part 2 and we will go through the solutions for the last 12 questions.